It's Wednesday, March 31st, and time for your Barbados Today morning news update. Government's latest COVID-19 directive has seemingly left some sector officials perplexed. Business leaders and medical professionals are trying to figure out the criteria used to restrict most activities, particularly during the upcoming Easter holidays, while allowing others to open. President of the Barbados Private Sector Association, Edward Clark, is hoping the directive that imposes strict restrictions on weekends will be the last of its kind, even as he questioned the government's rationale.
I can't understand why restaurants can open and other businesses can't. I don't understand it. And unless I can get a good explanation. No, there must be some good reason behind it, because if you're asked to stay home but you can go to a restaurant, really, I don't understand it, Green. I'll be talking in the dark because it doesn't add up to me. But you know, these are protocols that the government has come up with, and we just need to follow them right now. We are looking forward to everybody being reopened at the nearest future, part of the future. I don't understand some of the things other than they're trying to control movement of people. But some of it, it doesn't sink, if you see what I'm saying. Yeah. But we are certainly willing to comply with the orders. We have to. We certainly don't have a choice. But we continue to canvass for other businesses to be allowed to be open on weekends and let us get back to our normal business operations and so on in Barbados. We desperately need to do so at the earliest opportunity.
Meanwhile, head of the Barbados Association of Medical Practitioners, Dr. Linda Williams, said she was curious to find out whether the stipulation that permits restaurant dine-in service during an island-wide stay-at-home order is based on some COVID-19 risk assessment that has not been publicly disclosed.
So you're either selling nothing or you're selling everything. That's how I see it, personally. But, I mean, you see, the difficulty is picking through them like that. I cannot tell you what risk assessment is based on. I don't know. And each thing that you do is like an intervention that you should then see how it affects. So locking down the country, however you choose to lock it down, is going to have an effect. Okay? Yeah. When you lock down the country and you make some exceptions, well, that will have an impact on the effect. If you have a lot of exceptions, then that also has an impact on the effect.
Children from all spheres of life have been affected by the switch to online learning brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. That's according to the director of the School of Education at the University of the West Indies Gavel campus, Professor Joel Worrican. He made the comments while speaking on a panel discussion held yesterday entitled Mind the Education Gap, Schooling in the Caribbean During COVID-19, hosted by the UWI's COVID-19 Task Force. Professor Worrican said the pandemic had exposed the deficiencies of the current education system, and he maintained that while it had exacerbated those deficiencies, they existed long before the pandemic.
When there is adversity, no matter who it seems to be affecting primarily, ultimately, it affects us all, and COVID is doing just that. Major disparities exist, and may I hasten to say, have existed for a long time in our education system. But what COVID has done is that it exposed these disparities in different ways. The difference in this COVID era with the closure of school and restrictions on in-person lesson is that even within the middle class, children are encountering challenges that in the pre-COVID time were faced constantly by the so-called have-nots, the underprivileged children. Middle-class children, in my opinion, may have devices and the internet, but in many cases, their parents have to go to work just like everybody else. And like the underprivileged children, many of them are left alone at home.
Professor Worrican said online learning did not bring out the best in teachers and also highlighted a weakness in teacher supervision. He also pointed to the fact that secondary school students were underperforming prior to COVID.
COVID is helping us to see what has been going on behind the scenes and gives us insights into why. I believe that it is all linked to the prominent elements of our education system that places enormous stress on teachers and students. So, COVID-19 has brought some transparency to what happens in the classroom. Do not let us be fooled that things were going well prior to the pandemic and that the pandemic is the cause of all the ills that are coming to light. Remember that prior to COVID, the closure of schools and the switch to primarily online learning. Let us not forget that only 30% of our students writing secondary school exit examinations obtained 5 or more subjects, including English and mathematics. Remember, this is the requirement to get into universities, into colleges, into the job market. 30%. So, could things have really been so good as we are saying? I doubt that.
In other news, fisherfolk at the Bridgetown Fisheries Complex enjoy an increase in sales in the lead-up to the Easter weekend. Vendors and fishermen also reported that there has been an abundance of flying fish on the market, resulting in consumers being able to once again purchase the delicacy at reasonable prices between $15 and $20 per pack of 10. It was a hive of activity when a Barbados Today team visited the Bridgetown facility yesterday.
These 2 days haven't been bad. I don't know what'll happen by tomorrow or whatever, but it ain't look bad.
Well, yesterday the sales started to pick up and today it has increased a little. This is the first time since COVID I have seen so many people coming to and forth the market. Yes, they're buying because, you know, as Good Friday, traditionally you have to eat fish. So they're buying the fish, they're buying lots of dolphin, marlin, flying fish, turpits, and amberfish, which wasn't around for a long time.
For me, it has been okay. But I can't speak for everybody else, but the market, as you can see, is full. Whatever I get, I am thankful for. And this, to me, would have been the busiest in a long time that we would have experienced.
So far, business has been great. We got enough flying fish to supply the customers. We don't have enough. Because this is the first season and a good few seasons that flying fish being so plentiful. You're paying $130 for 100 flying fish straight from the boat. And then it's a pack of 10 for $20. Everything has been great. It's just the hours is not enough.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To developments on the regional front, the Ministry of Health in Guyana says it is finalizing the details in order to send samples to the U.S. to test for COVID-19 variants. More from News Source, Guyana.
Minister of Health Dr. Frank Anthony has announced that Guyana is looking to send COVID-19 samples to the United States to be tested for new variants of the virus. The Ministry of Health earlier this year sent 10 samples to the Caribbean Public Health Agency in Trinidad to test for the new variants. But Dr. Anthony said nothing of significance was found from those samples. Testing for the new variants requires genetic sequencing, which cannot be done in Guyana.
We have been also pursuing another arrangement, and that is to send samples to the United States but we are still trying to finalize those details of how to get the samples up to them. So as of now, the samples that were sent for sequencing, whatever strain is circulating was the regular strain that has been circulating since December. So we didn't detect any change.
The health minister also said he cannot confirm that a steady rise in cases in Guyana is associated with any new variant. He said this would have to be confirmed by a laboratory.
And finally, in the US, a rise in COVID-19 pediatric cases is causing much concern for health officials there as the country experiences its fourth wave of the pandemic. More from CBS News.
Doctors warning the next COVID surge is not on the horizon, it's already here. Cases now rising in over half the country, 27 states, including New York, Connecticut, and Louisiana. Nationwide, infections up double digits in the last week compared to the one before. Especially troubling, the rise in pediatric cases. In Michigan, per capita COVID cases among 10 to 19-year-olds rising faster than any other age group, more than doubling in the last month.
We're seeing the increase in transmission in young kids, primarily in the upper Midwest and the Northeast right now. But that's just a matter of time before we see it go throughout the entire United States. Unfortunately, we are going to see a rise in pediatric hospitalizations and serious illness.
Doctors saying the surge can be slowed if Americans don't let their guard down and get vaccinated.
We are almost at the finish line, but we're not there.
Today, the head of the CDC talking with the nation's governors.
And I encouraged all governors to include a mask mandate in their states. And to the extent that states were not having a mask mandate, as we do have in Massachusetts, I would ask citizens to mask regardless of the mandate.
That's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.